coffee up and get ready so we can spend the morning together. So really excited about everything going on. Good morning, Catalyst. This is crazy. This is my first Catalyst in person since last year. So last month we were gone, my wife and I, and so this is very unique as we kind of come out of the whole COVID situation. You know, it's still kind of a little bit upside down, at least for me. But I really want to welcome all of you, those that are online and those of you that are here, to our monthly gathering of influencers. And really, the bottom line for us here at Catalyst is we want to really have you engage with individuals in the room and get to know them, and even set up times to meet afterwards, and just develop a relationship in a way to kind of embrace the collaborative spirit that's happening here in our community, because I think we all deeply love our community, and we're better together than we are separate. And one thing that I've really appreciated is the expertise is in the room. Amazing things that we're able to find out as we talk to each other and learn about each other and learn about the unique things. So couple of quick items here this morning. If you're in the room, please sign in on the sheet in the middle of your table. If you're online, please mute your audio, and please feel free to chat with us. We have our own John Torres, who is going to be responding to that, and John's over there like dancing around. Okay, I don't know if you can see that or not, but he'll respond to you right away. For those of you that are here at this meeting or even at home, if you are online also, could you go to City Ministry Network Facebook and do a like? You know, this is kind of like typical right now with anybody that you are working with. If everybody says, make sure you like us, you know, so do that little click. We would really appreciate that. And but the bottom line this morning in particular, as always, is this is, again, where community collaboration matters. There have been so many great thought leaders in our community that have been emphasizing that. And for us to continue to grow as a community, I think that's just so imperative. I don't know if you guys saw the list of the top 20 places not to live in the country. I saw that yesterday, and I thought, oh no, you know, as I went through the list and the click. And I'm not going to say who's number one, but it's another area, it's somewhere within 100 miles from here, let's just say that. And then but we ended up there, and it's like, why? You know, why is that? Because I think it's the raw data, you know, the individuals have. Because I love this community, and I know most of you do too. But one of the ways I think that we can really accentuate who we are is, like I said, just a continued relationships and development amongst us. So what we're going to do at the tables right now, and also for those online, we're going to spend a few minutes connecting with each other. So around your table, or those of you online, discuss two questions that you're going to see on the screen right now. And please give everyone at your table a chance to talk. So those questions are up there. First one, what are some of the lessons you learned about money as a child? I love that question. Man, I'm going to try to answer that myself. And on a scale of 1 to 10 being very awkward, 10 being not awkward at all, how awkward is it for you to talk about your own personal finances and why? So I think, John, they're going to go in a chat room. No, they're not. They're just going to answer their own. Oh, they have different questions. So, okay, let's spend the next moments. Just go ahead around the tables, and those of you on Facebook, we'll check you out in a few. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move into our next phase. I was listening to John Torres and his group over there. Those are some amazing questions, John, that you guys are asking. Is there anybody in particular that's just a superstar in that group? They all killed it. Okay, that's pretty good. You guys all killed it. Okay. So anyway, so I'm excited this morning to talk about a topic that's really not the easiest, especially during the time period we've gone through. There's a lot of issues that affected us as a result of COVID, but not most important, but one that's very, very important is the financial resilience during tough times. I mean, just think of the impact that we've seen that's happened in our area, in our community, with businesses and individuals as a result of what's gone on. So it's really my pleasure to introduce Carmen Wilson from the Center of Human Services and Karen Williams from Learningquest. If you guys could come up and give them a hand. And we wanted to get a couple of individuals that in particular work for nonprofits but have just such a stellar reputation, their organizations do. And so we're going to really kind of have a kind of a living room talk here as a family and really try to work through some of these questions, because you guys, we're not experts, right? We're just really practitioners. But why don't you each introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
I'm Karen Williams. I'm the executive director of Learningquest, and what? Thank you.
Is that your son?
Yeah, I paid him. We are an organization that provides adult education, so that means we help people get their high school diploma, we help people learn to read, we help people learn to speak, read, and write English. Those are our three main things. And then this last year, we started, just before COVID, we started a program to tutor kids who are dyslexic. And that has been a wonderful experience as well. So those are our main things that we do in this community. And I've been there 25 years in November.
Oh my goodness, wow.
I know, they can't get rid of me. And I've loved it because actually I watched this little baby grow up. And when I came, it had just spun off of Volunteer Center, which went under United Way. And so they spun off the Literacy Center, is what it was called then. And it was very tiny. It had never had an executive director except an interim person to kind of run it until they hired one. And so it was a baby. And there was hardly any budget, and there was only one other part-time person who worked there. And now we have about 50 employees.
Wow.
It's like 41, I think, right now. But it'll be 50 by the end of the year. And we also have a budget of $2.2 million. So it has actually really grown over the years. And we do a lot of work throughout Stanislaus County.
That's awesome. I didn't know a lot of that. Yeah, that's amazing. That's good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carmen Wilson. I'm the Operations Director at Center for Human Services. Thank you. I paid somebody too.
She brought her whole family.
I'm a CPA by trade. I was in public accounting for many years, and then I became the Finance Director at Center. And then 3 or 4 years ago, I became the Operations Director. And so I still jump in and help with finance sometimes, providing support to our new Finance Director. Center has been around for 50 years. We celebrated our 50-year anniversary in 2020, and of course, a lot of other things were going on in 2020, so unfortunately, I think we missed some of our parties and celebrations, but even in the 7 years that I've been at Center, they have just grown so much. I think our service model remains very similar. We provide a lot of school-based services, so counseling as well as student assistance. And we provide services in family resource centers throughout Stanislaus County. We have 4 locations in more of the outer areas from Modesto. And that just provides connections for families to their community and to county resources. And so those folks were really busy this year with additional COVID money that they were helping to push out into the community to those who needed it. And then we also provide shelter services. And in the midst of 2020, we were planning our Youth Navigation Center, which is going to be open in probably June or July. And so we're really excited about that. And I think just the growth that Center for Human Services had over the 7 years that I've been there. I think when I started, there were maybe 150 people, and now we're at 260, projecting 280 for the new year. And our budget, I think, was 7 or 8 million when I started, and now it's 16, maybe 17. Wow. We're still putting our numbers together. So it's really grown, and I know we'll get into this when we talk, but I'm just really proud to be a part of that organization.
That's great. Great to hear. It's such great success stories. Could you imagine when you were young or younger, and you talk about hundreds of or tens of millions of dollars. I mean, come on, right? Back then it was like, could I even be responsible for me? Could I even be responsible for $10? Well, no, I couldn't have. But anyway, so let's get started. So for you guys, again, from a nonprofit perspective and from a perspective of really giving such core services to our community, what does a financially healthy organization look like? Because in order to do the work you're doing, you have to be financially healthy, right? So what does it look like?
So I think the first thing is you have to have a diversified funding. As a nonprofit, you can't be dependent on just a couple of contracts or a couple of funding sources. You really need to have a variety, because if one of those decides we're going to give it to someone else, because they make us write grants and write proposals every 2 to 3 years, so they give it to someone else, you do not want to be devastated by that. You want to feel like you can survive that because you have other funding that's underpinning your organization. So that is one thing. Another thing is having unrestricted funding. So for business owners out there, what you need to realize is we are dependent on fundraising and grants and contracts. So if you are getting funding from individuals, you want it to be as unrestricted as possible so you can use it when you need it for what you need it to do. So I would say a really healthy balance of unrestricted funding.
That's great.
I think any organization of any size needs to have financial controls and financial oversight so that you are watching what happens in your business. And as you mentioned, we are dependent on grants and fundraising. And I think in nonprofits, there's this idea that you can't make a profit. And we don't make a profit. We're nonprofit organizations. But it is okay sometimes to end your year in a surplus. In fact, that's very important so that you can put money away for times when funding changes, or when there are hard times, or when you want to embark on something that's new. And so I think any healthy organization is going to have reserves, and they're going to build them up the best that they can. But it's even okay for a nonprofit to do that it's important even for us.
Carmen, is there a percentage of reserves that you guys really shoot for as a target?
We don't have a percentage we're shooting for, no.
Okay.
We are new because we're a younger organization, and we're just trying to get to the point where we have like 3 months of operating expense in a reserve that is separate from also having the money that we need for cash flow. So it's two things. So we have to have the cash flow reserves, and then we have these rainy day, if you want to call it that, reserves that we don't touch. So.
Kind of that's the alarm, right? When you start crawling closer to that, then all of a sudden you recognize that, we have to really become resilient, which really takes me to my next question. So how would you define financial resilience? Because, unexpected things happen, right? So what would you define that?
Well, I think you can react quickly to those challenges. So I thought about this experience. It was a few years ago. For those who remember when we had the big economic downturn in, I'm trying to remember when that was, but I feel like it was 20 years ago. But they had this thing called a trigger bill at the state. So they said, if we don't get X number of dollars into our treasury, then we're going to cut these things. But we don't know if we're going to cut them yet, so it's up to you what you do. You can spend it and hope for it, or you can just not hope for it. So I'm like, this is a crazy way to do business, but whatever. Okay, so after about a month, I said to myself, the longer I wait to make this decision, the deeper the hole gets. And so I said, we're just going to act as though we're not getting it, and we're going to make those cuts now.
Wow.
I am so thankful I did that because they pulled the trigger 6 months later. If I had been spending that for 6 months, I would have been in a really big hole. And so it kind of taught me a lesson, like just do the cuts. You can always restore things later, but you can never fill that hole that you just dug out.
That's great. Go ahead, Carl.
That ties in with what I was thinking about too, is that you have to make tough decisions timely, and it's hard sometimes to make those. I think for financial resilience, you want to know what your resources are, what's available to you as far as borrowing, and know when to make those tough decisions. And I think that depends on if your funding is directly tied to an expense. If that funding goes away, you have to seriously consider, do we float this? Do we use our reserves? Do we have our reserves? Or can we get other funding somewhere else? And how long can that happen? And I think we had to make a really tough decision at the beginning of the pandemic, and we did the calculations and we measured, like you said, if you let this go for too long, you're going to dig yourself a hole. And so it's just having the tools to evaluate that and then making your decisions timely.
That's great. So that really leads me to my next questions, which I think really kind of falls into that, because what you just articulated, which I think is fabulous, you just didn't wake up one morning and all of a sudden say, oh, what about this, right? So in talking about your organization's vision, mission, values, how did that support you during this time? It was like, what I heard is this, you were prepared for that as an organization. So how did your mission, vision, values kind of affect that reaction?
Well, I think when you're making decisions about what you cut, you make sure that your core mission is sustained somehow with whatever funding you can provide to that. If you're going to make cuts, I usually build my budget with possible places to cut. Mm-hmm. Like I build it so I know, for instance, we use a lot of books. Well, this year we didn't, right? We used a lot of Chromebooks this year. So we had to adjust that way. But I always know if I needed books for my students, the community would respond if I asked. So if I'm ever going to make a cut, it's going to start with books. Because I can reach out to the community and they'll say, okay, we'll give you money for books, because that's a no-brainer. So I feel like I have these areas where I know they're not going to necessarily want to pay for my staff. I don't know why, but people don't like to pay for staff. So that's where I'm going to make my cut. So it's kind of like you go into it knowing this is where I would cut if I had to, and cutting there sooner than later, as we said, when you have to.
So that's kind of like not having blinders behind you or moving forward, right? Being able to recognize that's part of a strategic plan.
I think two of the values that we leaned on during this time was innovation and relationships. And so I mentioned that we had to make a tough decision, and so many of our employees are school-based employees. And so when schools closed, we asked that question when we thought this could happen. Before the schools closed, we said, what are we going to do if the schools closed? And one of our major funders was already indicating that they would continue to provide services by telehealth, and so we managed around getting everybody ready to do that. But local schools that were providing funding for our staff hadn't said that, and we had to make a tough decision to lay people off. And then almost immediately, though, the folks that were responsible for those employees, the leaders of those groups, were leveraging their relationships. They were going back to the school districts and saying, this is how we can continue to provide service. And the relationships they had with those folks and the trust they had built over many years allowed them to sort of resell the services, that we can still do this even if your kids aren't on campus. We can do this by telehealth or Zoom. It wasn't healthcare services, but it was reselling it and then bringing our employees back almost right away. And so I was really glad that we were able to do that. But it was being innovative on how we deliver and then leveraging our relationships.
It sounds like you guys have really strong organizational kind of a teamwork, and so there's some values and system that you have that really kind of help promote this, right? Where it's just not, doesn't all fall on the executive director, but it falls on all of us as a team. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah, in fact, I thought about that when I was going through these questions, because there was one that related to that. And it really was a team effort. Like when we saw the pandemic was happening and that we were going to have to do services differently, our whole team came together and figured out a response. And I feel like I had less to do with it than everyone else. They just deployed and they made it happen. And I just sat there going, wow,
Yeah.
it's happening.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and I was so proud of them. And it really is, I think anytime you have a big change or a big event in your organization, and it doesn't have to be a pandemic, it can just be a big budget cut that's got to happen, bring the team together, because the team can figure out maybe a different way of doing it, or getting money from somebody else, or like she said, leveraging a relationship that they have with somebody. Just talk to the team and then you'll get ideas. Don't try to solve it yourself.
Cool. You want to respond to?
Yeah, I want to say one of the things that I love about Center for Human Services is we have what we call a leadership framework, and it's the basis of it is that everyone in the organization is a self-leader, and that together we build collective leadership, that we can make things happen. And so at every level of our organization, people were changing the way they were providing services. You know, when you go from having classes with little kids to you know, in your office and doing like a 0 to 5 class or something like that, when you can pivot that and build little packets that people pick up and they could do crafts at home and watch you do it on Zooms, just watching the ways our leaders changed and were creative about how they could still reach out to people, and it was amazing to see. And it's not just on one person, you know, that collectively we make decisions. Okay, this area of the work is going to move here or there, but you know, so we made a few pivots like that, but it was each level of leaders just saying, we're going to do this and make it happen, continue to serve our clients.
So I'm going to make a statement and see if you guys agree or push back on it, but it seems to me in your guys' organizations that you have invested a lot of money on the framework. You talked about framework, a culture, you know, that really allowed you to become resilient. So there wasn't panic at that point in time, and also you didn't feel like one individual's carrying everything. So that's kind of, in my opinion, that's kind of return on investment that nobody ever sees when you really spend time, you know, really developing your staff culture. You agree?
Oh, absolutely. I've really watched our culture change for the positive over the last few years. And I was so thankful that we were in that place we were in when this hit, because we all trusted each other, and that was not always true. And we all wanted to work together. And 3 years prior, that probably wouldn't have been true. So I was really thankful that we had gotten there, and it did take some intentionality on our part to get there. But it's one of those things that you really need to be a team if you're going to go through something like this. Awesome,
awesome. And it comes at a cost from a leadership perspective, right? I mean, you really have to be intentional in that. So, so this is maybe a little bit a tougher question here, but in times of change or plans, you know, where you have catastrophes or like a pandemic or something like that, what's kind of your opinion on how you come to the place of balancing between scaling back, or really doing the opposite, actually going out and generating more funds and kind of reinventing yourself, and then actually, you know, growing. I mean, so where's the tension? Because there's some tension there, right? Because I think for the center, for you guys, I think you guys were able to really grow, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that during this we grew because we were already out in the communities. We got specific funding for COVID response, and so we were just poised to be able to serve clients and to take those grant funds and to get them into the community. But then also, if I could go back a couple of years, we had a situation where one of our programs that was longstanding in the community, our Pathways program, lost a significant amount of funding. And we had to decide, what are we going to do? And when you talk about scaling back or generating funds, it's really about what does this mean to the community and what's going to happen if we scale back. So in this case, we had a program that was existing that people were a part of. If you just close that, what do you do to those participants? And so we as a team made a commitment, and our board bought into this, that we were going to fund this for a year and see what happened from our reserves to make up those grant funds. And then it started us to be creative and to think about what that program does and how it's operated and what we did only because of that funding. And it allowed us to be more creative. And a couple of years ago, I think that was when we started envisioning the reality of the Youth Navigation Center, which is part of our growth during this year. And when you start on something like that and you're hoping to make asks of the community for fundraising, and then you have a pandemic that you're facing, how do you make those asks in the middle of a pandemic? But we probably paused for a few months, doing more thinking than asking, but we went right back out there and continued to ask and generate the funds. We had community support, not just from individuals making fundraising grants, but also from like grants from the city and the county to make this happen. This Youth Navigation Center really belongs to the county, and we're just the hosts.
Thank you. Karen, anything on that?
I was just going to mention that, so I'm part of Profit with a Purpose, and I know Center is as well, and we're just finding a way to take that Kids Quest program, which I really launched into in faith, saying somehow we will find money for this because it's the right thing to do. And we will figure it out. And, some of it's coming from, our fundraise dollars. But I'm hoping that we are going to be successful. What we're going to try to launch with Profit with a Purpose, which is basically a social enterprise where you charge, and then the profit you make goes back to fund something else, which is going to be our Kids Quest tutoring program. So we're doing that in the midst of all this, and I'm really excited about it.
So I'm going to add a question. I know Mike's not going to be happy with this, but but I think I'm really curious personally on this, so I'm being a little selfish here, you guys. But as a nonprofit, you have a board of directors. Yes. So you're making your decisions, but your governance does not allow you to ultimately make those decisions. So how do you creatively nurture that type of camaraderie or vision within your organization that allow you? Because I'm going to assume that you guys have some really stellar boards.
I'll jump in and say,
Okay,
yes, we have an absolutely stellar board, and they've supported us in a lot of different ways. And so I think they've directed our executive director, and then she has her leadership team, and we have our extended leadership team to make day-to-day decisions. And then when we are innovative, when we come up with these ideas, we run them with our board of directors. We get their input. They help us get a pulse on whether the community is going to be behind us on this, whether fundraising will be behind us on this, and the things that we may not have thought of, because many of them come from banking and for-profit businesses, and so they help give us a different perspective, and they've helped us with the marketing aspect of some of our things. And so I just love the fact that we have a very strong board of directors. Over the years, we've helped to share our mission, the things that we do, so that they really understand and don't just see us as a business where they sit on the board. They see us as a nonprofit with a mission, and they support the mission. So.
Great, good answer.
One of the things that one of our board members is so good at financial stuff that she has really helped us refine how we communicate finances to the board. I think that's one of the things that sometimes I saw board members just glossing over when we were doing our financials. So she came up with this very great tool called a financial dashboard, and that's what they look at. And it shows them the key things that they need to know about how our finances are going without it getting into the weeds and the nitty-gritty. So that was the first thing that really turned it around. Like, now they get what our finances actually look like. So that was key. And the other thing is when I wanted to launch Kids Quest, they had some skepticism. They asked some great questions. They had me do things a little differently than I would have done them. But I love that. I love that they make me think of it, like she said, differently, or they make me go out and find out some more information and bring it back so that we're not just launching into it without the right information. So they did that for me, and they also trusted me. They said, okay, if you think this is really important and we can do it, then let's try it.
So it comes back down to mission values, right? And just really embedding that all the way through the organization. If there are leaders out there who are saying, I need help in this area on their business, so this is a tough question because we're not experts, right? But do you have any tools or ideas or resources that you would recommend to them to grow in their understanding of this topic? I'm thinking from a perspective, there's a lot of new nonprofits that are launching, or a lot that have been around for a while but have struggled to some degree. Is there any resource that we're aware of, or help us? We'll think out loud here, okay? Yeah.
I think we both just talked about our board of directors. I think that's our first resource. And if you don't have the expertise you need on your board, recruit for it. When we've lost board members that had a certain expertise, we would recruit in that area. So I think that's important. And then your audit firm or your tax preparer, they might be able to direct you to maybe trainings or just different things that might be valuable. And your bankers and your investment partners, if you're able to invest. But those professionals, they're used to reaching out and helping, and so you just have to ask and build those relationships so that you that when they hear about trainings or opportunities, that you can get that. And there's certainly a lot to read out there, and it's really bringing in the right people, making an investment in the people that you need that have the expertise that's important. Because no matter what your size, you need enough financial control that you're in control of your finances, that they're not just in control of you.
I just thought of one thing, and that was, especially as we were in our more formative years as a nonprofit, we really struggled with cash flow because most of your grants are reimbursable. That means you have to spend it before you get it back. So you have to have enough cash to spend it out. And I have watched some nonprofits really struggle with that. And they're like, I can't, because I can't spend it out before I get it. I can't wait 3 months to get it. So they really struggle with cash flow. And we've had different times when the state has delayed payments for months and months at a time. And so cash flow can be a big issue when you don't have enough cash reserves to be your own banker, if you will, and float yourself along. So one of the things we did was look for a credit line that was large enough to handle those gaps.
Wow.
And the first thing I had to overcome was none of my board wanted to be personally responsible for that credit line. And there's lots of banks who won't do it if you won't have that personal guarantee. And so we really looked and looked and looked and looked, and we finally found there's a product through the state that is for small businesses that they will provide 80% of the credit line, or some, I'm not exact on the numbers, but they will underwrite it at the state level, so a bank will loan it to you at the local level, and that's what we did, and that really helped us.
That's a great example. I think that for us, we've been able to really use the resources of other established nonprofits, and they've been gracious to come alongside us and really kind of mentor us and help us as we've been able to make decisions. So, because it's difficult. I think I heard empathy definitely from both of you guys, because we've been at that place before, right? I could feel, Karen, you're going, when we had to apply for the, for the cash flow, right? Those are tough. Tough issues.
I have a great story on cash flow. Okay, so I'm a woman of faith, so thank goodness God got us through those years when we didn't have the credit line. But we still need him, don't get me wrong. But there was this, I just saw this story on Facebook from, I think it was like 5 years ago or something. It was a memory. It was such an amazing thing. So we had bills, had to be paid. So, my bookkeeper let me know, okay, by Monday we have to pay these bills. And it was like, I don't remember, like $3,000. And I said, okay, we're going to pray about this over the weekend. And then Monday we're going to go and see what's in the mail. And we're going to make our deposit, and then we're going to see where we are. And then we're going to figure it out, okay? So she opens up all the mail. She adds it all up. It was within $5 of what we needed. And I said, here's my donation. Go pay the bills.
Wow.
It was awesome.
If I would have given my $5 donation, you wouldn't have had to do that, right?
That's
right. Right, sheesh. So we only have about a minute left. Kind of any closing thoughts from a perspective of, there are businesses out there that have been hit hard and are really trying to find that. Any kind of words of encouragement that you have for them?
I would just like to say that sometimes it can be very challenging, and I know Catalyst is filled with people of faith, and we're not a faith-based nonprofit, but we have a lot of people of faith, And I think we are, we have that in our mind as we lead our organization. And I think that's important, and to take calculated risks, to invest in people, and you don't have to be the biggest. You just have to be right for your size and for your mission.
Great.
Those are great words. I'm like,
I
I,
know,
don't know how
How do
to
you top
top
that?
that. So we'll just go with that.
Okay. And I think that just be encouraged. I think many of us have come from that place. You were not at one time the large organizations that you were, right? You were just basically small organizations like many. So you got to start from somewhere. And I think in closing here, I hope that through Catalyst that you're able to develop the relationships with others, that between us and in our community that we can help each other in ways and make ourselves available, because we are better when you guys are doing what you're doing best. And the same thing with those of you out there that you're running your organizations. We are so much better when you're healthy and when you're encouraged, because some of this work sometimes can just really be thankless, but so crucial to who we are as a community. So would you give these guys a hand for coming up here? Thank you guys so much. Good stuff, you guys. Wow, good stuff. So what we're going to do now is we're at your tables, and also John Torres over there, I think he's got something else going on. I don't know what John's crazy, so I don't know what's going to happen there, but we're going to go ahead and do breakouts. I guess they're going to do a breakout room. So at your tables, we want to discuss what is one idea shared today that you personally found helpful. Oh, there it is, and why. And name 3 indicators that would give you a feeling of being financially resilient. Okay? Let's spend some time doing that right now. With that said, I'm going to have Dr. Marvin Jacobo come up here. Dr. Marvin Jacobo, who was the 70-decade athlete of the year in the country, I think, not just in Modesto, right?
Yeah, all over the place. Thanks, Jim. So I know some of you are so excited about financial resilience and budgets. Wasn't that exciting? Yeah. So I go over to my friend Charlie and I say, hey, wake up, Charlie. I don't know, Charlie, I'm never sure if he likes, do you like budgets? Are you a budget guy? So Joe is our city minister networks. We're not sure what he really does. Chief financial officer, but caretaker. So we're working on the budget for next year, and we have this I really think it's healthy. This give and take. I'm the spender visionary. Let's go do this, and he's been the responsible grounder, for us. And I'm looking at you publicly saying it was fun, but there can be the tension in the room of those kind of things, because this is not how I think. And so I just want to encourage you, a healthy team has all these personalities and all these different people with strengths, and giving space for all of them. And I know for us, I really believe we've been a healthy balance. So I want to encourage you to surround yourself. I've really been a believer of staffing your weaknesses. So knowing who I am and who I'm not, and then asking the Lord to bring to me around us trusted people who know how to do things that either I don't know how to do, or candidly, I don't want to learn how to do. I'd rather be doing other things. On the other hand, if you're a tiny mom and pop, and I still think we're a mom and pop, that there's things, I still have to learn how to do and have to do them all until there's times when something changes. So I want to let you know, our community is rich in relationships and support. If you're a mom and pop, or you're even like personal finances or even your business finances, you can always reach out to City Ministry Network, and you might have other friends. Even Karen can help you, but there'll be places that you can go to. And who would you talk to? Who can I trust to get some help? And we'll surely help you with that. But when I come away, takeaways, I think of surrounding myself with weaknesses, asking for support, and also getting wisdom. I had breakfast on Tuesday morning with a retired, very respected CPA, and I said, would you please come and work with us for 6 months, just to support Joe, as we just have quite a bit of things coming and going and moving around. And so he says, well, of course. And then I look at him, and you know how us nonprofit leaders are. Well, how much should I compensate you? thinking for sure, I really don't want to compensate you, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And he looked at me with his serious eyes, his CPA eyes. He looks at me and he says, you can't afford me. So I'm going to do it for nothing. Yeah, yeah, exactly what I wanted. But candidly, he's right. I couldn't have afforded him. I know one of the things we're pretty excited about is mentoring small business owners. And especially over this last year, we've bumped into all kinds of mom and pop organizations, small businesses that really need to strengthen their financial systems and acumen. And so we want to, I know I'm pretty excited about that, is helping them and getting them into these entrepreneurs, because our community is rich with entrepreneurs, just amazing groups. So I want to thank you for being a part. I want to encourage you, if we're coming back alive, we are going hybrid, and that's the big word now. So there's some of us here that are live. There's some that are on Facebook. There are some that are on Zoom, and they're all participating in that way. We'll continue to open up slowly with COVID safe until we get some clear mandates from the state. So I want to encourage you to schedule a time with some coffee, reconnect with somebody. I got together, what's today? Thursday. I got together yesterday morning with somebody, I'll say Francine DiCiano or Foley, who United Way. We hadn't talked to each other for over a year. And to sit across the table and have coffee and laugh with each other, it was tremendous. And so just a mutual support and encouragement. If there's somebody that comes to your mind to do that, do that. I know I left and she left with just some real joy that our friends, we made it through this last year and we're still walking the planet. We are a 501c3 and we are a faith-based nonprofit. So if for the Lord and before yourself, if you'd like to give to us financially to support all the work that we're doing, if you'd like to hear more about what we're doing, and we are doing tons, please let me know and we can surely talk. Next week we are looking at another leadership skill. We'll be looking at how to lead creative minds, creative artists. And so as we continue to figure out and remind ourselves some of the things that our children have lost and our community has lost, the creative minds, we want to come back and revisit that and celebrate the creative person. And so that'll be next week at Catalyst. So I want to thank next month at Catalyst. Please feel free to hang around, talk to each other. This is what this is about. We started Catalyst with the idea that our community lacks spaces to build trust relationships. And nothing in our community happens without trust. And so hang around, spend time. We're finishing a little bit early so you can just hang around and talk and get serious or make fun of each other or show each other your spreadsheets and have those kind of conversations, that's what you'd like to do. If you want to just spend all your money, come see me and we can talk about how to, you tell me how you're spending yours and how I want to spend mine, or complain about your business office, whatever you want to do. Let me pray for us. Master, thank you that you are the steward. And you ask us, you command us, you expect us to steward the gifts and resources that you bring to us and entrust with us. And Lord, thank you for the men and women who do this well and who are gifted at it. And Lord, as I talk to other nonprofit leaders, even over this past few days, they're all looking for those that have this strength. And so may they be revealed to us. Thank you for them, how much of a gift they are. And even as I tease Joe, and I will continue to tease him, thank you for the gift of God he is to me as a friend and as a business person, and what he is to the community. And Lord, there are some that might be struggling big time, and even like Karen's story, they're just waiting for the mail to come. Pray you'd bless them. In Christ's name, amen. You have a good morning.